this is something that comes up constantly for me, and I've finally just become aware of what I believe to be a fact, and that is that artist brains, artist personas, we tend to, our mental health really comes into play with our careers. They are intertwined.
Yeah.
And we are measuring ourselves now more than ever based on our success, not actually on the work that we're doing, but how well it's received. And almost everyone, and the more I got into producing, I saw this. Almost everyone, we would talk on a personal level. You get intimate in the studio and the musical experiences together and collaborations. And almost everyone, when we would get really serious and down to it, would reveal that they deal with depression, anxiety. I mean, just go down the list of all the mental health things. Almost everyone not just had a bit of it, but really struggled with it, and struggled with it quietly, because, it's embarrassing. We're supposed to be rock stars. We're not supposed to have stage fright, anxiety, depression. And now you're dealing with this completely. I want to know what your experience is with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was always kind of an anxious kid. I never thought I was immortal. I would have what I now can say were anxiety attacks, like out babysitting, and like wondering if my parents were okay, like weird worries, right? And then touring with my band in my early 20s. I remember being on like a bus on the way to the airport in Switzerland, and like thinking that I was sick because my heart rate was going, and like my bass player was like, "You're having a panic attack, like breathe." Like, he was so great, like he knew what it was. And I was like, what are these words? Panic, and like fast forward to like later 20s and early 30s, and I thought I had like a gluten allergy or something, and I like my panic attack started to be very physical. Like, it kind of felt and looked like food poisoning to the outside eye. And it wasn't until I went to like it was an endocrinologist who did like lactose test and gluten test and like a camera down the throat, all this stuff. And he sat me in his office. He's like, "Okay, you could drink a cow. You're not lactose intolerant. It's not a thing." He's like, "What's going on in your life?" I was like, "Oh, it's, I'm in the music industry, so it's like not very predictable, but it's totally fine. I'm dating a mountain guide, and that's not scary at all. And we're long distance. It's like everything's 100% up in the air. It's like, yeah, no, it's great. Things are great. What's up with you?" And he was the first person that was like, "I think these are panic attacks. I think this is anxiety." And I was like, I never had words to put to it. And I had already started, a friend invited me to like a sort of personal development growth thing. I had hired a coach for my career. Like, I sort of knew that there were people out there, but like therapy, that's not a thing. That was not a word in my house. There's a lot of like, we have bad feelings. Okay, let's fix them. Like, there was a lot of like not really feeling the depths of like sadness, anger, and which now I'm seeing in my later life also means that you don't have access to the well of like deep happiness or love, so there's parameters put on yourself when you grow up, and sort of this like try to make everything better, which of course is not like parents' fault. They're all doing the best that they can, but then you start to see it later somatically and like show up in this like very physical way. So that led me to starting to like try yoga and meditation and things that I never thought I could do, because I run a million. You hear how fast I talk, right? Like, my brain is not. It's not different up there. So I was like, meditation. But I'm on day like 2,800 and something of meditating straight. I stopped counting at 1,500 days, but I just keep track of the years. And it's what got me into new age music after 4 albums of sort of singer-songwriter pop stuff, was trying to find music that could latch on to an anxiety attack and then help me slow down my heart rate. And I got into the biometrics of music, because a lot of the music at the time I was looking for was like either like drones, or it was like classical music where my, classically trained ear would go listening to the melodies, and I wasn't processing what I needed to do in that session. Like, I didn't get to do the work there. Even though I was nice distraction, I would come back to the same like stuff happening in my body. So that led me to creating my first album in the new age realm, and digging into biometrics and heart rate and heart rate variability and things like that, and how sound can help kind of mitigate the effects, but also allow you to heal and process and feel crappy for a minute, but knowing that you're going to get taken out of it. So yeah, it's all connected, like the life part with the music part, with the just trying to get really out of my head and logically, like I should not be anxious. I shouldn't be depressed. I'm lucky. I have this and this and that. Like that's
Right.
all up here, right? And it just hasn't dropped into my body, or it hadn't, right? And regulated my nervous system, where my nervous system was like, oh, I don't need to be that scared 8-year-old that didn't get the thing or was terrified, whatever. Like I don't need to be running my business from the point of view of a 16-year-old. Like, who wants a 16-year-old running their business, right? But so many of us are running our businesses because of some like unhealed thing. Like, oh, that's never going to happen again. So to be able to recognize that and do this work and see it for myself has been really empowering. And it's when stuff started opening up for me, when I kind of was allowing myself to drop into my body and like listen to the anxiety instead of trying to just get rid of it.
No, for me and a lot of people, the general listening audience listens to music that you're describing as therapy. It brings you to a certain place, allows you to diffuse a lot of negative energy, etc. For the music creator, oftentimes the creation of the music is the therapy. It's the thing when everything gets ugly in our lives or anxious or whatever it might be. That is where we go. That is, for me, it used to be a piano in a completely dark room where nobody could hear me. That was my therapy.
Yeah.
How much for you, because you're creating music that is therapy for other people, how much of the creation process is your own therapy as well?
Depending on what the project, I would say most of it. I mean, my first New Age project, Luminary, was kind of a fluke in the sense that it was an artist residency I got into in Greece, and it was like 2 weeks, and they were like, here's your room. And it was this cave with a grand piano and it perfectly tuned. And I knew that I would never be able to recreate the reverb in that room. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do this piano album. And I plucked strings and I had a bell. So it was like a couple weird vocal things, no lyrics, and then everything I could do with a piano and this little bell. And I didn't think I was going to be doing a recording there. I thought I was going to like write lyrics for a choral thing. And then when I saw that I had a piano, which they didn't tell me ahead of time, I was like, oh, this is amazing. But I was like, what do I need right now? And I was like, I really need some of this. I need to be seen in the anxious state, but I also want to be like gently lifted out of it. So I just set out to create 6 10-minute pieces, each one starting with some sort of conflict, dissonance, like, so it could sort of meet me where I was. And then either the tempo would slow down or go from more minor to major. Like it would sort of slowly take me out. And I think it worked, and it did really well with my fans, even though it was such a pivot from my pop singer, songwriter, piano stuff that I was doing. So that was all just for me. And I was like, I'll just release it. Like, it's just this little project I did in this room with like a tiny mic. Like it wasn't like anything that I would have considered at the time studio quality. But, 3 albums later, New Age albums later, like I just in the middle sort of end of the pandemic, my best friend and collaborator who I wrote a Broadway musical with passed away from cancer. And 2 weeks after he died, I had tickets to go cross country on a train trip that I was going to go with him. And I just went, and I brought a tiny little keyboard. You can see it oh no, you can't see it. Maybe you can see it. And I ended up just like letting myself create these like synthy tracks. It doesn't sound like a mourning project, like I'm grieving, but for me, it was just, how can I was so exhausted from grieving, but I also needed to get away. So it was such a perfect thing to have my own little room on this train to like feel like I was traveling, but I could also just lie down and like look at the elk running along the river. And it was like the best of both worlds of rest, but also traveling at 80 miles an hour. And that's the album that got nominated for a Grammy. And it was 100% for me to just process grief in a way I had never done before musically. And so I think what people are getting is not like, oh, I'm feeling Cheryl's grief in this. I think what they're getting is like that meditative processing. There's a lot of space. It's the most spacious thing I've ever done. I feel like I pulled all of my skills as a composer and a speaker and all these things and just like stretched it out over the album. And And I think that has allowed people to listen to it and just feel something, whatever they need to feel. I wasn't trying to be like, you need to feel this
Right.
grief song, or you need to, like, you should feel what I feel. It was more like, I'm feeling this and this is what the result is. Are you able to feel something? And I think if they're able to feel anything, then that experience got translated in the right way.